Welcome to the Islamic Library Association. We are dedicated to showcasing Muslims' rich contributions to literature and society while advocating for accurate representation and equity in libraries. Hello and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khalisah Harris. I'm a librarian and the founder of the Islamic Library Association. Through this work, we advocate for equity in libraries and public spaces, ensuring accurate representation of Muslims while highlighting the incredible contributions Muslims have made and continue to make to the literary landscape. This channel serves as a space to celebrate and amplify Muslim voices, recognize Muslim contributions, and promote the diversity of perspectives within society. Today, we are joined by Alonso Avila. Alonso is an outreach and student success librarian and a first generation Chicagoan of Mexican heritage. He has worked across the Midwest and even served as an English teacher with the Peace Corps in Jordan. Alonso is passionate about exploring the intersections of global hip hop culture, social justice, and Islam, bringing a unique perspective to his work, supporting students and community engagement. Assalamu alaikum, Alonso. How are you today?
Walaikum salam. Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing good. And
Alhamdulillah. Well, I'm so happy that you could join us today. Your work within higher education is phenomenal, and I think that many people would want to know more about what all you do.
yes, thank you.
So let's just hop right into it. Could you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to work in academic libraries?
Yeah. So I mean you said it already in the bio, first generation, Chicago in the Mexican descent. Um, I'm the oldest of four, and honestly, I didn't have any aspirations to work in the education realm whatsoever, but somehow my path took me. As an undergrad, I worked in AmeriCorps for 2 straight summers, working mostly with fifth grade students as like a mentor.
Okay.
Um, and as an undergrad, I also worked at least 3 years in the circulation desk at my college's main library, and that was my introduction into libraries. And from there, I worked as an administrative assistant at a charter high school in Chicago, um, because I needed a job, basically.
Yeah.
But in that time period as an administrative assistant, I knew that I wanted to travel, um, basically see the world. And so I went into Peace Corps, taught English in Jordan, and coming back, I knew that I needed to find a job of some sort to sustain me
Mhm.
and also not rely on my parents so much. So I figured that I really enjoyed my experience as student assistant at the circulation desk at my alma mater, and then it was just kind of grad school for my master's in library and information science, and now being a full-fledged uh, academic librarian.
So ultimately, it was not your intention to go into academic librarianship, experiences and life, it guided you there. So it
Yes.
put you where you were supposed to be.
Uh,
Now you're an outreach and student success librarian. What does that role look like on a daily basis, just for people who are not aware of those duties?
yeah. I mean, it varies, right? So no one day is ever the same
Hmm.
as the next or the previous one. And so just some of the things that I do, I guess, are a lot of meetings, whether that be within the libraries or in other committees outside of the library. I also prepare for teaching a library session. So the fall semester is especially very busy with teaching. Uh, it's just when we have the most teaching to do, and then during the springtime, things kind of slow down a bit. And so it's teaching for first year seminar courses, introducing the students to the library's resources and services. And then it's also working with the departments that we liaise to, and assisting them with their own courses. And those tend to be a little more, it's a mix, right? So it's not just first year students, but then you're dealing with students from all years, first, second, third, and fourth in those classes. I'm also helping students or faculty at the research help desk, whether that's virtually or meeting with them in person. I'm also um, providing students with research assistance. So we offer students a 30-minute block and just kind of help them find keywords and databases to help them with their research assignments. I do help out and coordinate a few programs at the main library, and kind of, but not related to libraries. I am currently co-chairing or just chairing this professional Latina organization here on campus, and it's just like an opportunity for this community to just gather and know that we're not alone, because in I don't know if this is the same in any other profession, but I think in academia it can feel very siloed, like you're alone, you're doing things just by yourself. And so having this specific group and community is very affirming.
You do a lot.
Yes. Yes.
So, how has your experiences as a first generation Chicagoan shaped your approach to working with students and supporting their success?
I actually come from that background, and so I have an understanding. Mind you, it's been years now since
Mhm.
that experience. But I think that there still are very similar experiences and challenges that students still face,
Okay.
especially if these are students that are also coming from cities like myself, and especially from Chicago. And if they come from a very similar background, they're going to encounter the very same challenges with living in a very small town and not having access to the foods or the restaurants that they're used to, and having to live away from home. And so I think that it it takes some time to build that relationship with students, and eventually it just kind of happens organically, whether that's through my work with professors that I work with, or students that I might connect with during any of these research appointments. And then that's when doors start to open a little more. I can tell them a little bit more about my experiences, and just like the willingness to be able to share more resources with the students during these appointments, because there might be something that they're researching that I feel personally connected to, or I might know of other peers and other professionals within that subject or that profession. And I can then say, well, I know so and so, and I can put you in contact with them, or I can reach out to them and see what information they can give me so that I can share that information with you to help you make some progress on that research assignment. Um, and some students that I've met with have also come from the same charter high school network, and so we can also bond through some of the experiences that we had being a student within that school system.
You're ultimately saying that your background allows you to connect with more students who may come from similar backgrounds, from a bigger city to a smaller town, living away from home from your parents. That's, most students' experiences is their first time living and existing without their parents'
Yes. Yes.
direct protection and assistance. So it's a lot of
Right.
figuring out and navigating different relationships on their own. So if they have someone such as yourself, where there's some type of connection and similarity, it makes that transition easier for the student. So it's more than
Yes.
just um, academic research. It's the connections and bonds and mentoring and, assistance that really builds
Exactly.
that relationship for the greater good of the student to
Yes.
actually give them better opportunities for ultimate success.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
So you taught English in Jordan. How did
Yes.
that international experience influence your work?
Mm. So teaching English in Jordan, it was a 2-year experience, and it wasn't the first time dealing with an international community. But I feel like a combination of my experience as an undergrad and dealing with international students there, and also working with this international community in Jordan, allowed me or gave me this opportunity of knowing how to deal with people from different backgrounds, and especially with some of the work that I might do either in the classroom. I think some international students come across other peers or other professionals where the the English being spoken to them comes at them at a very fast pace. And so I try to be mindful of that in the way that I communicate. And I think maybe not just with international students, but just with people in general, just trying to make the dialogue a bit more accessible, more welcoming, I guess.
So that goes right into my next question. How does your Muslim identity influence the way you connect with students and approach the outreach that you do?
It's interesting because when I returned to the States from Jordan, I thought, let me just connect with just the Jordanian community in Chicago. And I would have loved that. Y- I think it would have been really cool. But I think the returning back to the States opened up other doors, seeing just how much more diverse and international the Muslim community truly is.
Mhm.
And then also in that learning that I I mean, this is a personal choice, obviously, going to Jordan, but still coming back to the States and then learning about the history of enslaved Africans in the Americas, and the role that Islam played through them as well. Was also very meaningful. And so it was just a combination of like the history of Islam here in the Americas, but also just the diversity of the Muslim community in general, and through those connections, just kind of seeing the same being reflected with the Muslim Student Association here on campus. And, just being able to work with a variety of personalities and cultures, I think allows you to uh, ease a bit more easily into these conversations with the students. You're able to relate with them. Um, Obviously because of shared faith, but also because you have an understanding of their cultures and where they're coming from. And the students, I think, are able to appreciate that a little more. Um, Maybe two examples that I can give. I briefly, um, when I first started in my job, I connected with a student um who's Jordanian, and that was an automatic connection that I was able to make with the student, and I could share my experiences of where I lived and the little bit of Arabic that I was able to learn, or a relationship that I had built with this Afghani student. Um, Over time, it was just through, helping them in their research assignments or because they were preparing um, for getting their driver's license, I was able to, tutor them in that way too, to make it easier for them for whenever they went up to get their driver's license. And so it students see that they appreciate it, and it makes it easy to connect with Muslim students in that way, just kind of offering um, that sort
Okay,
of perspective, but also openness and willingness to learn from them as well.
very nice. You make some amazing points. Uh, because you mentioned something about shared faith. Okay, so as Muslims, but it's very important, I feel, for people in general, but especially people who are in a position to have a huge impact on a student's success.
Yes.
And faith is one thing, but to acknowledge that there are cultural differences, that's actually a skill because everyone does not have that. There's a lot of teachers who may be good at teaching, whatever class they have. But the lack of awareness or understanding of the cultures behind or that come with some of their students, it, it it's a it can be a great disservice to not only
Yes.
the student but even the instructor. And so, like you said, to learn from each other, it's very important for teachers and people who have positions such as yours to be in those positions and have the cultural awareness that is required to truly fulfill their job's duties. So I think
Yes.
that's amazing. So you mentioned that you participate with the MSA, the Muslim
Right.
Student Association. Have you noticed any specific or common challenges that Muslim students face? Um, and have you noticed any ways that academic libraries can better support them?
Yeah, that's a good question. That last part, especially. Um, so I guess I'll start with some of the challenges. And one of the challenges for sure is that in this town there are um, I I don't know the exact number, but from the ones that I can think of, there are at least four churches, but no mosques in
Okay.
the area. The closest mosque to us is about a 30, either 25, there's actually two that I can think of. It's either 25 minutes or a 30-minute drive. But regardless, it's a drive away from here. And if students don't have access to a vehicle,
Mm,
then it makes it challenging for them. And even for myself, when I first started here at my job, I didn't have a car. I didn't drive. And so now that I can drive, I can make these trips whenever I have time, but it doesn't mean that all of the students will be just as privileged to make that drive. Another challenge that was kind of an issue for some time was that the students didn't have a proper prayer space. They did when I first started, but then there was construction happening in the main building where their space was available, and they just either kept getting moved or
yeah.
uh, there wasn't any firm like, well, let's provide you with something like this. It was a whole discussion. Basically, the
I'm
students
sure.
were in, the students eventually organized, and they spoke to the dean of students and other representatives on campus, and they were able to eventually uh, find a room um, more construction eventually happened in this other building, and now they're back in the original building where they were. The space is definitely much cleaner. So they have that support now. The other challenge I would say is the prayer space is nice, but I feel that there are other student organizations on campus that might have their own building or their own house, and the Muslim Student Association doesn't have that. They have to reserved shared spaces that other students or professionals use, and the only space that they can truly claim as their own is that prayer space. And one other challenge I would say is not having access to a Muslim chaplain or um, imam or even like a Muslim advisor. Um, And when I first started, we did have this scholar who would travel from Cleveland to Oberlin, and she would serve as the mentor specifically for the Muslim Student Association. But then she left, and they never were able to fill that need. So the students continue to not have that immediate support, although there is a director of religious and spiritual life, but it's not the same, honestly.
So you made again some amazing points that I think a lot of people don't consider or don't really see. And so you mentioned something about the distance.
Yes.
So let's say a student does have a car and the ability to drive. But I know student schedules are very hectic, especially if they have a sport. And even if they don't have a sport, your classes are one thing, but the homework
Mhm.
workload is so heavy that driving 30 minutes one way and then being there and then coming back, I mean, you're looking at least 2 hours. And what about your energy levels? You still need rest. You still have to eat. Like there's so many more
Uh,
things. So that that distance, even if they have the technical ability to
mhm.
drive, doesn't mean that it's still feasible.
Yeah,
Mhm. And
exactly.
and that's a really big thing. And like you said, there's four churches right there. So
Mhm.
that's something to consider. So uh, how is a student expected to be successful academically when spiritually they are extremely hindered? And then when you consider the ages of freshman
Yeah.
students and things like that, that's a pivotal moment in their lives, a pivotal time. And it's a lot to ask or to expect certain things. It's almost as if universities have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, yes, exactly. No,
Yeah.
you're exactly correct. And you bring up a good point too. Something that I meant to add to is like um the students are very diverse. Their needs are also very diverse. And you mentioned these demands. And so yes, students are some of them, and a number of them actually are navigating academia for the first time, the demands of academia, but also living away from home or from a structured uh, life and a structured home, I guess. And so they're having to learn how to be independent, how to navigate their own relationship with their own faith, but also learning how to deal with, having to write an academic paper, to do research. And so they've got all of these other demands that they need to deal with in addition to navigating their own relationship to their faith.
And then you also brought up the food.
Yes.
Most people, in those small towns, the food is not it. It's not it,
It's
especially if you
not.
come from any type of household that you're used to
Mm,
eating real food. normally it's the mother. I'm not saying it's only mothers, but normally it's the mother. She's preparing her food for the family with
Um,
love.
mhm.
It's seasoned, spiced, and it's edible. It's good. But it's
Yes.
so you get in these small towns, and you're like, oh my god, I gotta starve too. Like it's just not right. And that's where
No,
culture matters.
it's so
Some
real.
families don't just eat boxed mashed potatoes, and they never had
It's
that in
so
their life.
real.
Like, what is this? So, and that creates additional stress for a student. It
Yes,
really does. It may sound like, oh, well, if you go to the cafeteria, not when the cafeteria does not provide the food that you like, when it does
it's
not
not
provide the
good.
food that it's required for your well-being, for what you're
Mhm.
used to, and that's not even mentioning if the food is halal or not.
Right, right. There have been some cases here where the students are told, yes, we offer halal options, but sometimes those options are questionable and
Mhm.
um yeah, it's it sounds depressing basically the limited options that students have to good food.
Mhm. So you also mentioned to me, it sounds like frustration. I would be frustrated if I didn't have a designated space to pray and things like that. And also said it's a shared space. And that's again when it comes to higher education administration, to be aware of who you have and to make those accommodations. Because a Muslim's prayer space might not need to look like someone else's prayer space. So you can't compare it. You can't say, oh, we gave you that corner over there. The corner has to
Yes.
make sense, and it has to fit the needs of
Um,
those people who are praying there, and it
mhm.
might not, well, honestly, it's not gonna look the same. The requirements are
Yes.
different. So you can't say, "Oh, we gave them the same size. Oh, we gave them the same." mm, the needs are different. So you can't
Um,
just say, "Oh, we gave you this room," and then they keep hopping around, instruction, move, 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 move. That's higher education has a lot to do to improve.
yes.
And they have so many, things that they work on that stated as statements and policies on student success. But how is a student going to be successful when
Um,
so many other things are lacking? You know,
yes.
Is the mission to have a student graduate, or is the mission to have a whole, a wholesome student where they can
Mhm.
function in society afterwards, not just a degree?
Yes.
You
Right.
could have destroyed their mental health by the time they're getting through there because all of these
Mm,
additional challenges on top of the workload.
yes.
So I hope that that works out. And even like you said, even with the masjids being very far, if there was the imam that could come. So these are great challenges that you've brought up that I'm sure your university is not the only place facing these things, but they have to be acknowledged and discussed. And that's why we're here today, for you to
Yes.
speak on the behalf of Muslim students and things that Muslims experience. And you, as a Muslim librarian and supporting these students, it needs to be known because we talk a lot about representation of, let's say, students, but you're Muslim staff.
Yes.
Like, you're literally on the payroll. How are you on the payroll? You have to drive that far to go to a masjid. How are you on the payroll? Talking about EAP,
Um,
like, okay, we need to add that to the EAP list because this is not conducive. I can't even support the students, the Muslim students, because the Muslim
yes.
staff don't have what they need. Oh, we're gonna have to
Mhm.
help them out. But it's okay. So, in your opinion, how can libraries or librarians, and in your case, we're going to specifically talk about academic libraries and librarians, highlight the contributions of Muslims within academia when it comes to even the culture and social justice, some of the things that you've mentioned? How can we
Mm,
help with
mhm.
that?
Yeah, I think some of the ways to highlight Muslim contributions to culture and to society in general. Doing outreach work and reaching out to professors who might be teaching courses on Muslims or Islam and trying to see what ways uh, I might be able to assist them in their class, or what other things I might be able to add or highlight that are missing from the conversations. I'll use an example from last year. There's this visiting professor, and she was teaching a class on American Muslims. And we were talking, and I told her, well, one of the things that I am passionate about is definitely hip hop, and then hip hop artists who also identify as Muslim. Is there any way that I could possibly, talk to you or see what I can add that might be a benefit to the conversation? And so she was able to invite me to the class and basically use me as a resource to the students. And so I think that's one way. For example, I think some other ways could be book displays. Book
Hmm.
displays are very simple. They're passive, but I think that they can still be effective. Also, looking at some things that I've written, but maybe working with a local Muslim organization like CARE, or reaching out to some Muslim chaplain or a religious director to talk about putting together some type of program. And I don't know how far we've gone into this conversation of the pronunciation. We'll put together LibGuides, some research guides, where we can put together some more information about the contribution of Muslims to society. The other option too is working with the Muslim Student Association and seeing what ideas they might have related to programming, and um, meeting them halfway too, because just as interested in popular culture, they might also be interested in popular culture, and finding some type of common ground that appeals not only to their interests, but also highlights again the contributions of Muslims to society.
Yeah, I think you make some amazing points. And, the Islamic Library Association, I highlight, we talk a lot about how public libraries work, but in reality, all the libraries are reflections of each other.
Hmm.
And public libraries and academic libraries are just like school. They're all intertwined ultimately. And so when we advocate, for representation of Muslims, we're saying the same thing, book displays, work with Muslim organizations, like public libraries, they have like the book mobile, they go out to the communities. You're going to the churches, why aren't you going to the masjids? So you're saying the same exact thing just for academic librarians, and students.
Sure.
So, yes, the things you mentioned are, I think, spot on. And that even though you're an academic library, um, the goals, intentions, challenges, all of the things are very similar. And so you would therefore still fall under the umbrella of the Islamic Library Association as far as it help, like you were saying, um, ultimately, I think you were saying with your framework. Yes, the
Yes.
lip guides, things like that, but there's frameworks for all groups of
Mm.
people, but there's not one for the Muslims. Well, not
Hmm.
one for Islam specifically.
Yes.
So, because most Muslims have that there's so many different types of intersectionalities. So I noticed that most Muslims they tend to fall under their racial identity
Yes.
opposed to having a faith identity
Mm. Hmm.
that's represented. And so that's where
Yes.
the Islamic Library Association comes in to be a place for all Muslims. Uh, and you bring your racial identity with you. You don't have to only bring this part or this part. No, bring your whole self. And this is a place to discuss and address the needs and concerns and challenges and things like that. So I think the points that you made were right in line with everything else. So it's good to see. I love seeing other people who are in the field and understand what's missing
Yes.
because another person from the outside or an individual who does not personally identify as a Muslim, they oftentimes don't even see what's missing or see what's wrong or see what's not equitable it's like a whole blind spot. But that's okay because that's what we're here for, to enlighten everyone. And
Yes.
hey, hello, I'm on the payroll, so I have a voice here too.
Yes. Yes.
So you mentioned some of your passion, about uh, hip hop, social
Mhm.
justice, even Islam. How do these interests inform your outreach and engagement work with students? Because you said some of them may be interested in similar things, but have you experienced where they're like, "Oh, we're into that too," or how has that worked for you?
Yeah, it's been challenging, I will say that much. And I know that hip hop has entered and has been in the radar of academia. It exists.
Hmm.
I joke and I'm also serious that when I grow up, I want to be a hip hop librarian, and that's
Okay.
still a goal of mine.
Hmm.
But trying to embed that into my work or um, even as a librarian has been a little challenging, but I've been able to do a few things to just kind of still be a librarian in practice, but also um, continue these conversations related to hip hop and social justice. And so, for example, I've what some colleagues of mine have asked me previously um to help further this conversation related to Black and Brown masculinities within hip hop. And these colleagues of mine had invited this professor, Dr. Ford, to help facilitate this conversation on campus. And I think that was really successful conversation and dialogue amongst faculty, staff, and students. Another thing that I've been able to do is partner with the director of the musical studies uh, my here at my workplace, and um, and through that collaboration, put together this program called Rhythms and Rants. And it's not all hip hop related; it's just music in general. But one of the initial programs that we were able to put together was in celebration of the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And I was able to, uh, with my colleagues' help, identify two other professors who I could um, share basically the stage with and share our own experiences and journeys uh, through hip hop and how that looks like from each person's perspective. And so just kind of talking about its origins, speaking about it from an American lens, and then also I came in and just talked about it from a more international or global lens, and just trying to bring all of those lenses together. And then I don't know, I might have been a librarian at the time. I don't know if I was either a student or officially a professional librarian, but Dr. Suad Abdel Kabir, she wrote a book called Muslim Cool.
Oh,
And sometime in the late the late, is definitely like 2019, 2020 when she started this on Twitter, and it was called the Islam and Hip Hop Year in Review. And so let me see if I have it anywhere here. But yes, Islam and Hip Hop Year in Review. And so she basically was soliciting feedback from other peers and other friends about what artists in general, and not just hip hop, because she also focused on other Muslim, uh, music or musicians, yes, but actors and
Mm.
writers, etc. But the the focus seemed to highlight many hip hop artists, and so I was just able to provide some feedback, and that feedback happened to make it onto her list.
Right.
So I thought, like, yes, this is my contribution, and I felt really good about it. So those are some of the ways that I've been able to just kind of even if it's not all related to librarianship, or um, it doesn't look the way that I would like it to look, I still am able to engage um, with this part of me in other ways. And one other thing that I'll just kind of put out there that is a blue sky goal for me is to, and we'll see if it happens, but ideally it would be nice to put together some type of oral history together that highlights this experience from the early 90s that happened here in my workplace. And at the time, I think it was referred to as the hip hop explosion, but it has connections to Chicago. The main organizer, I believe, is from Chicago, wrote a book, wrote a number of books, but one of the bigger ones was called, and I could get this wrong, but I think it was called Bombing the Suburbs, and the focus on it was on graffiti.
Mhm.
And so many of my own peers in high school were big into that book.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I started reading a little more about it that I thought, oh, wow, this connects
Mhm.
to my workplace. But also why I think this would be cool is because the main library houses a piece of this event on our second floor, and it was done by a local Chicago graffiti artist. And so I think that there's potential here for a much larger conversation and just kind of collaboration with other departments on campus. So these are ideas that I'm not sure how to go about yet, but I would love to see develop somehow.
Like, you have to find a niche in life,
Mhm.
and I think you found that. And now you
Mm.
just to figure out a way on how you want to go about, you know, going more in depth on it. I
Yes.
think it's great. But that goes back to the cultures, because when you say Muslims or Islam to just someone who's not connected to Islam, they automatically normally just assume Africa. They're like, or
Yes. Yes.
and you use the word conversations and lenses a lot. So ultimately, it sounds like you're saying a form of advocacy.
Mhm.
So within that, there's advocacy looks different
Yep.
on different people in different places at different times, but it's still normally some form of advocacy. So, from your perspective, what role can male Muslim librarians, because librarians are still typically a female, it's considered a predominant female field. So,
Yes.
not only just a male librarian, but a Muslim male librarian, how do you feel your role plays What do you think your role is when it comes to mentoring or inspiring the next generation of students and library professionals?
Uh, I think this kind of ties into to another question that I can think of, but I think that the responses can kind of tie in together. So I'm thinking that what I think this role can look like in terms of advocacy for the population that I work with. Um, as a Muslim librarian, I think one is being present and and I guess what present can look very different
Mhm.
depending on the scenario, but I think a part of it is attending some of the events that students put together um, and showing the students that you're interested, that you're engaged, that you're wanting to continue to support what it is that they do, especially on campus. And I don't know, maybe eventually the way that I feel like I don't see myself necessarily, but I am nearing like uncle status. And so I think that in some ways there is this, they see an adult figure that maybe is reflective of maybe a family member or someone that they respect. And so I think that it's always good to not just have the support of students, but to see that other adults on campus uh, recognize the work that the students are doing. And I think that students appreciate that, and that I've seen that being reflected too in some of the students that I worked with. So there was one year where I helped these students with their own honors and capstone projects, and it was a year long relationship of just us talking about their research, continuing to find more helpful resources, um, and from that still building upon some of the more personal things. Being able to connect with each other either because of faith or where we come from or culture. Um, all of that led to an invitation to see their final project um and either like just seeing a picture that they had taken with me and then just adding it onto their presentation, or even like just a simple thanks, to Alonso for helping me through this process, I think is both meaningful, right? It goes both ways. It's meaningful to the student, but it's also meaningful to me because I think at times it can feel like is what I'm doing truly making a difference? And so when you get to see that, you see that, okay, I think I'm doing something right, and I'll continue to do that. So I think, those are some ways in terms of like presence. I think presence plays a big role. The other thing too that I think can still be meaningful is even if they don't necessarily look like they play such a big role, I still think that there is value in book displays. And so recently I put together one for um, the founder and chairman of the Young Lords chapter in Chicago, Jose Chacha Jimenez. And um, I put it out there because I knew that I wanted to do something for um, Latino Heritage Month, for example, and just the the response that I got from a few students was really cool because they thought, oh, when I saw the Puerto Rican flag and when I saw what you were doing, highlighting this figure, was very meaningful, and it felt good to see my own culture reflected through that book display. And so, something as small as that can still have an impact on the students that I work with. And I think also just in general, my interaction with peers and with students, how I hold myself either professionally or in a way that lets them see that I can be professional, but I can also connect with people at different levels. Um,
Um, I think it ultimately it inspires people when they feel that there's a connection with someone who is, like you said, nearing that uncle status,
yeah.
getting someone that they can connect with, let their home away from home comfortable.
Yes.
And so if you're
Hmm.
a part of that process for them, I definitely think it's inspirational because that allows them to function at a better capacity.
Ability to show care and interest, and like this willingness to help, I think goes a long way.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So the last question that I have for you today is you mentioned a lot about impact. So when you think about impact or legacy, what do you hope students and colleagues take away from your work?
So a very big one. Um, I think essentially, or what it comes down to is that I would hope that students and peers would see that like I cared for the work that I'm doing or that I did if we're talking in the past tense. But I hope that they see that I was intentional about the relationships that I was able to make. And I hope that they see beyond my professional title
Mhm.
and see just more of like, Alonso, you know, cared for the people that he worked with, or he was present and he was able to listen and was able to create an inviting space or environment for the people that he interacted with. I think those are all things that I would hope students and peers would take away in the end.
I think that's amazing. I, I believe that they will. I
Thank
guarantee
you.
that they acknowledge that already for all of the students, whether they're Muslim or not. I I appreciate your work as an academic librarian for
Thank
sure.
you.
Just that there's so many similarities and overlap, and it's just like you're just focusing on a different patron base. Every library has its space, but the work that you're phenomenal as a librarian in general, uh, as a male librarian, and definitely as a Muslim librarian, I think everyone should know that it's not only representation of books that are needed, but the students should be seen, and so should staff within libraries. So I appreciate your work, and I definitely get your time speaking with me today. And I'd love to stay up to date on any new adventures, when you get into your hip hop niche.
Thank you. Yes.
We'd love to hear about it. So let's definitely stay in touch.
For
And that's
sure.
all I have for you. Did you have anything else you'd like to add today?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem at all. And I look forward to talking to you soon, inshallah.
Yes, inshallah. Salam.
Join the Islamic Library Association, and together we can shape a more inclusive future for literature.